can say with any confidence that this will be the last. This is just a little more than a year into his presidency. But this is something that has been building up for some time, and we are seeing really now the inevitable here, that whole build-up from the U.S. The Abraham Lincoln was not sent just to be called back, nor the Gerald Ford now, which is positioned very close to Israel to aid in its defense. This is now a situation that really is going to go to the finish. This is not something that can be compromised upon really by either. This is going to be the end of the regime, or is going to be the end of the US-Israeli intervention. I think we can take a fair guess which of those two scenarios is more likely. But the clear aim, and the first aim of the US, and this President Trump spelled out quite clearly, is to, short of that military erasure, to provoke a revolt within the IRGC, within the Iranian government, and to provoke a rebellion or encourage a rebellion among the people, so that in the face of this assault, people rise within Iran and it begins to crack from within. If that can happen by not just the show of force, but by the use of force to some limited extent, and if this were to provoke a rebellion within the government and from outside the government, from the people, then this would be the relative shortcut that the US certainly would look for, that President Trump would look for. That
so, in fact, I just want to take our viewers through those visuals that we are getting in. There's an attack on Bahrain also, but that missile was intercepted. In fact, information coming in that Qatar has also intercepted 2 Iranian missiles as per an official. This is information that's still trickling in. How long will this last is still unknown. But remember, right now, as we speak, the United States has amassed the largest invasion force in the Middle East. This is the largest ever since the Iraq war that was observed. I want to quickly bring in Ambassador Pinakaranjan Chakrabarti, who continues to stay with us. Ambassador, I want to bring you in on the point about ending US interventionism in the Middle East. That was a promise that was made. Remember, the Democrats have been asking the Trump administration why they have been so opaque, especially when it comes to their policy towards Middle East. In fact, Chuck Schumer, the Senate minority leader, also went on to accuse Donald Trump of hiding behind the cover of war, because this is a year which is very critical to the Republicans, as we all know, especially the fact that they will be headed into midterms.
Well, I think what President Trump is speaking is, of course, with an eye on the midterm elections. The war is by the way, in one section of the Americas, the war is popular, because they like this war, because America is flexing its muscle, showing that it is still a global hegemon and it can do anything it likes in wherever it wants across the planet. We've seen Venezuela. We've seen now, in fact, Mr. Trump is saying that the USA might attempt a friendly takeover of Cuba. This is the latest that we have heard. Now, this is the kind of thing, although he talks of stopping wars and his aspiration for a Nobel Prize has not ended. But then, geopolitics is not that simple. Stopping wars is not that simple. Afghanistan and Pakistan are also at each other's throats. So I don't think that is geopolitics will always trump those political rhetoric that we hear from time to time. And Israel is a different kettle of fish. I mean, I think Israel and the US are probably the closest allies in the world. And they have a different equation. They have a different kind of an understanding. So I don't think that, and since both of them want to eliminate Iran's regime and the nuclear facilities and missile facilities, so they have naturally cooperated. And I think, as you can see, the first attacks on Iran were launched from Israel and not from any aircraft carrier.
And since you speak of Israel, let me quickly bring in Sanjay, who is very much in Israel. In fact, he's been there ever since Prime Minister paid that visit. And that's why, Sanjay, everybody here on the MEA group is already asking the question, did the Israeli side share any information with the Indian side with regards to the attack being in the final stages of planning? I guess we'll never know. But what was the sense that you were gathering when you arrived in Israel?
Well, as you point out, this is not something that's likely to be known whether Netanyahu briefed Prime Minister Modi, unless at some stage either Netanyahu or the Prime Minister or the top ministers from either country comes up with any such information. But clearly it was a visit that came just before this. Netanyahu would certainly have known that this is coming, given the preparations and given the extensive networking with the US allies of Israel, to see that this is in place. So all of this would have been in place when the Indian PM visited. The fact is that we have heard from the MEA officials that Mr. Modi did try to prevail upon Mr. Netanyahu to say that the peaceful solution is always the best one. That would have been polite talk, certainly heard politely, responded to politely, and all the time Netanyahu was preparing for this war. Whether that was also known to Prime Minister Modi is something that's awaited. Certainly that is not something that has been shared publicly or even privately with very many so far.
All right, as we speak, in fact, an official statement coming in from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Iran. This is what the official statement, in fact, it's a detailed statement that's coming in. But just to give our viewers a quick gist of what it says that the Iranian nation will respond decisively and the aggressors will regret their criminal act. Now, let me quickly go back to Ambassador Pinak Chakrabarti as well. Ambassador, do you think that this is now an all-out war? And in terms of referring to Prime Minister's recent visit to Israel, for a country which has always prided itself in its strategic autonomy, does it leave India in a very tricky position at the moment?
No, I don't think so. I think India-Israel relations have gone over many years. Ever since we opened our mission there, diplomatic mission in 1992, and I was there from 95 to 99, and I have seen what kind of collaborations that started, and it has gone much beyond that now. So I think India-Israel relations are quite solid. The speculation about whether Prime Minister Netanyahu would have told Prime Minister Modi that yes, we are planning to attack, I don't think any country does that. But if they would have discussed the situation, there was no doubt about it, that Iran situation would have been discussed, and Prime Minister Netanyahu would have said very clearly that, this is very difficult for us and we have to deal with Iran, etc. But of course, he wouldn't tell that this is the date and time on which we will launch all the strikes. And India would have maintained its stock position that try and avoid military conflict. You are already talking to the Iranians in Geneva. Sort it out there across the table. That's been the stock Indian sort of position for a long time. So I don't think that we can speculate very much beyond this.
Okay. So I want to quickly refer to the detailed statement which we have, and maybe